Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be painting this dresser that I picked up off the side of the road. You can tell someone used it for their straightener or something like that on the top, but overall it is in fantastic condition. The inside is really nice and clean, so I won't have to do too much to the inside of it, luckily. First things first is always removing the hardware, and I am going to be reusing this hardware. I do end up spray painting them black. I didn't get it on camera, but I just used a paint and primer all-in-one black matte paint and spray painted them after I cleaned them thoroughly. And there was just a little bit of dust, so then I ended up vacuuming out anything just to make it a little bit easier to clean. If you vacuum out all the little dust, it won't get stuck to your rag when you're wiping down your piece. It's a good idea to make sure you do take out the drawers and inspect the inside of the dresser, because at this point I realized there is something in there, something that I really did not want to see inside of my dresser, which is why you should always inspect your dressers that you pick up off the side of the road, or any piece that you pick up off the side of the road. Make sure to take out the drawers and look at what's inside, because it's not always pretty, especially when it's been sitting at the side of the road. At this point, I just don't know really what to do, because there is some mouse droppings and some insulation in my dresser. Luckily, it wasn't a lot of mouse droppings, so it didn't look like they had been around for a very long time. When I pick this piece up, we have a large article pickup once a year, and it's only on the weekends, and I picked this up, I think, the first day that this large article pickup thing had happened, so it must have only been in there for a day or so, and you really don't want to touch this stuff with your hands, so I'm just using the end of the vacuum part and taking it out, which in hindsight I should have just grabbed it with my gloves, but I was inspecting it and seeing if there was anything living inside of there. Luckily there wasn't, so I threw that away. And then I continued with cleaning the piece. I cleaned the outside and the inside at first with just simple green. Obviously, with mouse droppings, you really want to make sure that you are cleaning it with a bleach and water mixture. From what I read online, that's what it recommended. So after I was done cleaning the entire piece, including the drawers with the simple green, I cleaned the entire piece again with the water and bleach mixture to make sure that I get rid of any of those yucky mouse bits that are in there. There was just a few spots on the drawers that needed some repairing, so I have this wood putty that is quite old. Even though I keep it in a plastic bag, it still tends to dry out, and I still use it as long as it's pliable enough. I'll use it until it's solid as a rock. I don't want to waste this stuff. You know, every penny that I can save, I try and save. So use it until you absolutely cannot use it any longer. I just put a thin layer on there, made sure it was at least over top of the part that's missing, so that way when you sand it down, it's nice and smooth. While that was drying, I ended up sanding the finish off of the two top drawers, so that way I am going to, what I thought was stain them, but I ended up not staining them. I left them bare. I liked the way that it looked better without any stain on it. The stain that I had tried was golden oak, and even though that's super light, it ended up making it so much darker than I originally wanted, so I ended up just leaving it bare and did a top coat over top of it. This contour carbide scraper works really well to get into the edges, and then I just use sandpaper to end up smoothing it out, because it is a little bit rough if you're too hard with it. You have to be really careful not to take a chunk out of the wood. So I just used the sandpaper to get anything that was left over and also smooth it out. The rest of the piece got sanded with a 220 grit just to give the paint something to stick to. It's going to rough up the surface of your piece that you're working on and allow the paint to adhere a lot better and last a lot longer. So you really don't want to skip the step of scuff sanding your pieces. Even with an all-in-one paint, if you scuff sand, your piece will 100% last longer. Just a little bit of scuffing up that surface and getting rid of the shiny, glossy finish really helps with adhesion. Any areas that I couldn't reach with my orbital sander, I just used my hand and got into all those little cracks and crevices. While I was sanding this piece, this little tiny spot here ended up popping up, so I just added some Gorilla Wood glue and clamped it down to make sure that it was very secure and it's not going to pop up on me again. All that sanding creates a lot of dust, so I wipe it away with a damp rag. I like to have 2 rags just to make sure that I am getting all the dust off. Finally ready to prime this piece. I am using Zinsser's Bin Shellac Base Primer. It is the best primer in my opinion. Unfortunately, you just have to wear a respirator because it's very strong and it is oil based. So you have to make sure that you do protect your lungs and wear that respirator. And I like to have gloves on just because it's very hard to clean off of your hands. But like I said, the oil-based primer, it just works 10 times better to make your paint adhere even better than a water-based primer. Typically with this primer, I only do 1 thin coat. In my experience, 1 thin coat is more than sufficient, but I do make sure it's a good thin coat. So I make sure that it's not perfect, it's not completely white and ready to go, but it's fully covered. There's no spots that I have missed, but it's just a really good light thin coat. If you've watched my videos before, I really hate using a paintbrush. If I can get away with using a roller, I will absolutely use a roller. It's faster. I just find it smoother. Anytime I use a brush, I can see the brush strokes, and I just hate the look of brush strokes. So I love using a roller. And you can get into almost every spot with a roller. You just have to make sure maybe it's just a tad bit more saturated than usual. But you want to make sure that obviously you're not leaving big spots of paint behind, because you will see that in the finished product. Between every primer or paint layer, you just want to give it a quick sand with some high grit sandpaper. I can't remember what I was using here, probably like a 400 or something is what I had on hand, and I just gave it a really light sanding to get rid of any texture that could have been left behind from the roller. And then you want to wipe away the dust again, because if you leave dust behind, it's going to affect the adhesion of your paint. The paint I chose to use is House and Canvas Underground. It's just like a deep dark green, and I really like this paint. It works really well. It's very easy to work with. It took me about 3 coats to get full coverage, but that's typical, especially with a dark green like this. If you did 2 coats, you could probably get away with it, but if you look closely, you can see that there could be some spots that are just, they need that extra 3rd coat. For the top coat, I'm using my usual Varathane Diamond Wood Finish top coat in Satin, and I do end up using my spray gun for the first coat, and then I realize that this gun really sucks and I don't like using it because it just doesn't work very well. Usually I can get away with 1 coat where it actually works for me, and then for whatever reason, all the other coats afterwards, it just does not want to spray properly and it just drives me nuts. So I ended up just using a good old sponge and applying the top coat like that. I didn't bother getting it on camera because I was just over it at that point, but I ended up applying about 4 coats total, including the one that I used with the sprayer, just to make sure that I am getting it into every little area and that it's going to provide really good coverage. After everything's fully dry, I haul my dresser into the house, I put the handles back on, and then we're ready to show you what the final look is. Here's another quick look at what it looked like before, and now here's the after.